I worked with a writer recently who has written documentation in their story. They have letters and emails. And they were wondering how they should go about formatting that. The answer is differently from the rest of your text. So today I want to talk about how to format written documents, letters, emails, texts, and more. When you include written documentation like this, the most important thing is clarity. Your reader should instantly know that they're reading a letter or a text or an email, and they should be able to tell where that written document begins and ends. That is what matters most when you're including this type of thing in your story. This is Ignited Ink Writing, a channel dedicated to helping authors like you transform your writing so it lingers with readers. Because writing that lingers gets remembered and recommended to others. I'm Caitlin Burvey, editor and writer. Let's begin with formatting letters and handwritten notes. Many writers default to italics whenever they include something like letters in their writing. This is a perfectly acceptable option. Italics are an easy choice. It's just a simple stroke on your keyboard, and it doesn't require a new font or any manipulation. But, as I mentioned in the video How to Use Italics in Creative Writing, Thoughts, Readability, and More, when you have pages of italics, they can wear out your reader's eyes. They are more difficult to read. So if you're including long letters, italics might not be the best choice. Also, if you're using italics for other things like thoughts, you don't want to also use them for written communication. That can become confusing. So here are some other options for your letters. Your first option is to use a different font. This font should fit nicely with the other fonts you're using for your book, but it should be clearly different and distinct. I will warn you that this different font choice is kind of a love-hate thing. Some authors, publishers, and editors and readers really like it. Other people really hate it. So it's a personal preference here. Another option is to use extra spaces bracketing your letter. This makes it clear that something is about to change in your text. You can also put an extra indent with that letter so that it stands out in kind of its own little column in the center of the page. Here's an example of a letter that uses both the extra space and that extra indent from my upcoming Modern Fairy Tale collection. Inside, she found a pink pocket notebook with her name written in the curly script of a romance novel etched across the front and a letter. Dear Kelly, my mom thought you might like to have this. I'm still learning. Please forgive any unflattering lines. You have been one of my favorite people to draw ever since I ran into you in the hospital hallway. Only the people we want to can open the notebook to see the drawings. Congratulations on your new job. Nazar. Thoroughly confused, Kelly glanced at the framed drawing from the only Nazar she'd ever met before picking up the tiny pink notebook. This formatting makes it clear where that letter begins and ends. I also included who the letter is addressed to and who is signing it. That also makes this clearly a letter. Because I used the recipient and sender, I could have easily done just the extra space or just the extra indent, and that would have worked just as well. But I chose to do both for clarity. If your piece requires a letter or some other handwritten document, take a look at how long that document is. That will help you decide if italics are your best choice or if you should look into some of these other options. Letters are not the only form of written communication you might find yourself using. So next, let's talk about formatting emails. More so than letters, emails are a little awkward when they're put in italics. That's still an acceptable choice, but I find that formatting the email like an actual email works a lot better. This means including things like the sender's email address, the recipient and their email address, the subject line, the date, or any combination of those things. Here's an example from Robin Henley's short story Reply All from the collection also called Reply All. To PAWS Listserv from Sam Fulgram Jr. Subject, replying to next meeting. Date, July 17th. Whoa boy, do you realize you just sent out your love note to the entire Poetry Association of the Western Suburbs listserv? Cheers, Sam. P.S. That mole You've got my imagination running wild. As long as the entire organization knows about it now, would you mind divulging its location? I'd sleep better at night knowing it. Reply all is one of my favorite examples of using emails in a story because it's written entirely through email. The premise is someone replies all to a listserv message, and chaos ensues. It's very fun to read, and like I said, it's all emails, there's nothing else. In this case, the author chose to include who it's to, the subject line, the date, and who it's from. You don't necessarily have to use all of those for your email. That is up to you. Emails can be formatted just like letters. They can be put in italics, they can have an extra space before them, an extra indent. They can also use a different font. For my personal preference, I like emails in the same font, no italics, but with that extra space and who it's from and to. If you're going back and forth between emails as a form of dialogue, you might consider just using the recipient's name and the sender's name. That way you don't have all of that extra information repeated over and over again, unless the date of when these are being sent is important or something like that. The sender and recipient will function like dialogue tags, letting you know who's sending which email to who. So those are some choices for formatting your emails. Next, let's cover formatting text messages and instant messages. Texts and IMs tend to be shorter and have a quicker back and forth, so their format is going to be a little bit different than the letters and the emails. Also, italics don't work as well for these because they can often be mistaken for thoughts when you really mean a text or an IM. Especially if you're using italics for thoughts throughout the story, don't use it for your texts and your instant messages. Other options are basically to format those things just like we see them on our phones and in chat rooms. This means they're formatted a lot like dialogue. Each time a new person texts or messages, you should start a new line. And instead of using quotation marks, you might use something like carets or colons or slashes. Here's an example. I'm having meatloaf pizza, LOL. What? That sounds gross. It's not bad. Notice not all of these have periods after them. They're formatted just like people text where we drop punctuation, we use acronyms, and we might not use complete sentences. What matters most in this type of written documentation is it's clear who is saying what. In the previous example, there were only two people communicating and it was a short exchange. However, if you have a longer exchange or more than one person, you might want to include their names. You could do something like Brian texted, Caitlin replied. Or you could format it more like the script of a play. Carolyn Pignett uses the play sort of format in her novel Shooter. Here's an excerpt. Bree. They've got the footage from the atrium camera. Izzy. Do they know who he is yet? Bree. Not yet. How are you holding up? Izzy. Worst day ever. These tags make it crystal clear who is saying what. They also give you the opportunity to have one person send more than one text in a row like Bree did, and still keep it clear who is texting when. And if you're going to have more than one person involved in this texting conversation, or have one character texting two people at once, those tags are going to be vital to your reader's understanding of your piece. A third option is to take that first format and make it look more like we see on our phones, where one person is left justified and the other is right justified. Here's an example of that. I'm having meatloaf pizza, LOL. What? That sounds gross. It's not bad. This is just another option. It's a simple formatting change, but it makes it even clearer who is saying what. So if you do it this way, you could have one person send more than one text in a row, and because it's in their column, it will be clear who sent that text. When it comes to text messages and instant messages, the most important thing is it's clear who is saying what and when they begin and end. You can use any of these examples, you can modify them, you can mix and match. Just make sure you find a format that works for your story and that your readers can follow. I'd like to leave you with an editor's advice for including written documents in your piece. Regardless of what type of written document you're using or what format you choose, it needs to be clear when that written document begins and ends. A part of this, yes, is how you format it. Another part is transitioning to that written document. In my example from my Modern Fairy Tale collection, the sentence before the written document mentions Kelly opening the packet and pulling out the letter. This prepares your reader to read that letter. Another example might be their phone dings and they pull it out of their pocket to look at it. Or the message icon appears on their computer screen, letting them know they've just gotten an email or an instant message. When you prepare your reader to switch to that written document, that transition will be smoother and it'll be easier for them to understand what's happening. I do want to mention I'm not against italics. They are a great tool in the writer's toolbox. I just see too many writers use them for everything, so I want to give you more options so you can make the best choice for your story. Sometimes that is italics, sometimes it's not. There is no right way to format written communication. It's mostly personal preference and clarity. So choose what you like. Choose what you think your readers are going to like, and stick with that. What's your favorite way to format written communication and why? Share it in the comments below. And for more videos on formatting and other aspects of writing, subscribe to Ignited Ink Writing, a channel dedicated to helping authors like you transform your writing so it lingers with your readers. Because writing that lingers gets remembered and recommended to others. I'm Caitlin Burvey, editor and writer. To find out more about me, go to www.ignitedinkWriting.com. There you will also find a worksheet on using synonyms to build your character voice. And now it's your turn to format your writing's written documents in a way that's clear and easy to follow to ignite your ink.